Absolutely no one at all. Lara Croft at her house at 6 in the morning.
Okay, let's do some tumbling.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome to my Tomb Raider 1 Remastered critique, review, 2 cents, opinions, whatever you want to call it. It has been a while since I did one of these type of videos. And initially, I wasn't even going to make content on this game. I was just going to buy it, play it, make no content on it, and see what it was. However, here we are today, and there is actually plenty to talk about with this game, especially since the first patch of this game has already dropped. And the point that got me to actually purchase this game was the fact that I heard they are adding modern controls to the game. And that was already a strong enough selling point for me, because when I played Tomb Raider 1 on Steam 2 years ago, I did not think that game had good movement physics that actually felt comfortable to use. You could get used to it, however, I would never say I was fond of it, which is a common thing for a good amount of people who played these games or attempted to play these games. My experience with Tomb Raider 1 2 years ago went along the lines of I did not like the movement controls, which is a deal breaker for a lot of people. You hear all the time, I tried to play the game, but I just did not like the controls. Felt like you were a freshman trying to parallel park a car. I think the whole series, up until Tomb Raider 3, has texture issues where you can't tell if something is interactable sometimes. So I played the game very on and off because I felt like sometimes it took a while to figure out what it is you're supposed to be doing. When I first played Tomb Raider 1, I felt like I referenced the guide way more than I wanted to, and I felt like the guide was playing the game more than I was, in terms of actually making progress in a convenient manner of time. And reasons that could have led to that is since I played the game on and off when I got stuck, certain concepts didn't stick. So with that being said, if you had an experience very similar to mine, that leads for questions to be asked, such as, if you attempted to play Tomb Raider before, and you failed at getting into the series, should you attempt to play the remasters to get back into them? And do I actually recommend these games, if you had an experience similar to mine? And I actually recommend Tomb Raider 1 Remastered. I had a very pleasant time playing Tomb Raider 1 Remastered. I had a complete polar experience than the first time I played the original 2 years ago. When I played the original, I rated it a 7, but on personal enjoyment, I think it was kind of a 6. Additionally, I think the main reason why I recommend Tomb Raider 1 Remastered is the first patch. Reasons being that the first patch actually corrects my gripes to a satisfying extent. Doesn't make it perfect, doesn't get rid of everything, but it makes the game even better than it already was. Furthermore, my biggest gripes in this game had to been the lighting, the camera, and the texture of certain items, especially the keys that you need to progress. Tomb Raider Remastered looks great with the remastered graphics, and they give you the option to toggle to the retro graphics. And one thing I had to do in this game is, yeah, it looks nice, but I had to switch to retro graphics because modern graphics lighting was just so dark majority of the time. Using modern graphics, you would miss switches because it's so dark and you could barely tell that that's a switch. It's very easily to miss. And after playing the game on the patch, I can definitely say that the lighting is still an issue. However, what really is fixed is they actually made keys look way more apparent than what they used to pre-patch. Pre-patch was crazy because if you were in modern graphics and there was a key on the ground, you might not have seen it. It's happened to me and it's made me wander around for freaking 45 minutes looking for a key that was actually in the room I was already in. Another addition that the patch did was they updated the action icon, which is that exclamation point that you see when something is interactable, which was a good addition to the game. That made everything so much easier. So you don't have to worry about bad textures and seeing if something is interactable or not. However, there was an issue with the previous icon system, which only activated if you were very close to that object and pretty much flat in front of it. On the Tomb of Koala Pig, on that level, there's a section where you drop down and you're in the room with 3 dogs and there's no way out. There is actually a block with a hook that's interactable. And however, I went around that room and I looked across every panel at a 45-degree angle, so I couldn't see the hook that shows you it's interactable because the camera angle wasn't really that low, plus modern graphics were that dark to the point where you can't even see it. And the issue is the action icon to show you if something is interactable never popped up for me. And then I end up reloading my save and then looking around the level for a whole bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with anything because I was initially right that one of those blocks were pushable. However, the game did not show me the icon. And I stream this on live too, so this is straight facts. You can go back to my streams and look for yourself. So I go back into that room for the 3rd time and I actually finally see the action icon because I'm looking at the panel flat in front of it. So what the patch did to combat that issue is they changed the way the action icon is. They changed it into a hand, and they also increased the range that the action icon will pop up for you, so you don't always have to be flat in front of it or at a tight angle for it to activate and show. Tomb Raider 1 Remastered at times has a very crazy camera. There's times where you would just be moving across the levels and the camera would just like spaz out and keep resetting and then going off on another angle, then resetting. There's times where your camera can actually mess up you platforming because the camera angle changes and it makes your character jump weird. One of the most annoying things the camera would do is there would be spots where you would back up into a corner and the camera wouldn't show your character's feet, which is important because you need to jump at the edge of the square. You can't measure your jump if you can't see your feet, right? Foot fetish people are punching the air right now. And what the patch did was they actually zoomed the camera out because pre-patch there's a lot of times where your camera will zoom all behind Lara since the camera was closer to her back than pre-patch. Additive to all the things that the patch did to make my gripes better, they also improved the movement even more than it already was because of the addition of modern controls. What the patch did is it made the movement even more smoother. Pre-patch, on modern controls, the game definitely felt a little more floaty and there was more input delay when you inputted jump. Pre-patch, I definitely felt like I was watching my character's feet more to make sure she was at the edge every time I had to make a jump. Now with the new patch, jumping seems way less calculated since there's now less input delay when you press the jump button. So a lot of this stuff comes at a cost. I feel like the game is a little bit more easier and it loses its identity of being very accurate with your movements. However, I still favor the new movement physics, definitely. But I'm just saying it feels less calculated. Unless you are playing on tank controls, but I won't play on tank because why would I do that to myself? Me playing with modern controls had me develop a technique I call looping. And what looping is you running downwards and then running back forward. It really has its applications when you're completing a jump in a corner with a wall behind you, the size of one square. Since those jumps do not show your feet, since you can do this in a tight space, the camera is more controlled, then you won't have to take those slow steps on tank controls to reposition yourself, or the slow steps on modern when you can operate in a very tight space, keep your momentum, and keep it pushing. In combat, it actually has applications too. You're able to keep your positioning without having to do all the crazy flips, risking bumping into a wall or a elevated structure, or even just falling off while doing those flips. I discovered this technique when I fought the first centaur, and I love the fact that when you get so close to them, they change their positioning. So if you just keep staying on them and putting that pressure, all they do is run away from you unless they do that little leg kick. And the same rule applies for all the human and humanoid enemies. It's very easy to control their movement and get behind them when you're safe and glaze them up. In my opinion, I believe modern controls are actually superior, because if you were to have one square and stand on it, and I say put a whole bunch of dots on it and touch all these dots, you can't do that with tank controls. But if you loop with modern controls, you can continue to run and touch every single dot while your camera doesn't shift. And you can operate in a tight space while being quicker than tank controls. Modern controls just feel so much more comfortable compared to tank, but to each their own. There is a difference between how the camera operates within tank controls and modern controls. With modern controls, you can see the camera likes to go behind Lara when you're in a corner with a wall behind you, and sometimes it will go right on top of Lara's head and you can't see her legs or torso, which becomes a problem when you're doing a jump that's the size of one square with a wall behind you in the corner, because you can't see your feet to measure the jump, which is why you would loop to control the camera and to do the jump so you don't have to go in the corner. With tank controls, you can actually see the camera stabilizes itself and does a new camera angle, which usually gives you a great perspective. So after playing these games for quite some time, I think when I played Tomb Raider 1 Remastered, the game finally resonated with me. Like we went on a date and we got some coffee and we were finally able to chop it up and understand each other on a cosmic level. All jokes aside, what people really like about Tomb Raider is the sense of self-discovery, even down to finding out how your character moves and the movement physics. Then discovering the movement options that you have and finding out when you need to apply them in a level to figure out how you traverse yourself throughout the level. For example, you might notice this type of landmark and then you can see that you can roll and dangle off the ledge, then shimmy to where you need to go. Or maybe it's you discovering the other movement options that Croft Manor doesn't tell you about, such as the swan dive or maybe the acrobatic leg lift. When I played Tomb Raider 1 Remastered, I played it from start to finish. I didn't play any other games, and I played it very consistently, and I think I flew through the game pretty quick. And in the process of all the self-discovery that I did, I finally was able to understand the Tomb Raider formula fully. Even more in that process, you finally learn how well the developers are able to hide things in this game. And the things they hide complements the game's grid system. And the grid system is, if you look at the game in retro graphics or the original Tomb Raider, you will see that the game is composed of a whole bunch of squares. And these squares actually dictate where you can go and what you can do and the movement options that you can do to get to where you need to be. You know, sometimes they can hide a point of elevation that you need to jump on in some bushes. Or maybe it's a whole bunch of slanted surfaces that if you jump on, you will slide off. And they hidden a flat surface amongst the slanted ones for you to jump on to continue to go throughout the level. Or for example, on the Omelets of Khamun level, I had a switch and this platform lowered, but I'm trying to figure out how do I get there, and I actually left the room and looked all over the level again and came back and realized I can go to the top block, jump to this ledge and shimmy over and drop to that platform, and that ledge was actually so well hidden. There is times where you'll realize that you have to hit switches in a specific order to get a gate open. In my process of self-discovery, I actually developed a technique that I would use to help me get through the levels. And I would use this when I got stuck for a long time. I would actually use camera mode, and you can use camera mode to zoom through the whole level as long as there's no door blocking you. This is clever because you can get a different perspective of the level and look at the level in different angles of the room you're in and figure out exactly what it is you need to do. Because sometimes certain platforms don't even look like platforms, but with camera mode, you'll be able to see everything way more clearer than you can from Laura's point of view. Realizing all these things, it made me realize why Lara moves the way she does in the original Tomb Raider. And even with modern controls in Tomb Raider Remaster, the movement physics still don't feel 100% fluid. But I understand, due to the physics, how the game is so simplistic yet very accurate with the movements that they want you to pull off. So after playing New Game Plus with the new patch that dropped, I can definitely say that I think Tomb Raider 1 is a good game. I think Tomb Raider 1 will grab the masses, but it will be at a cost, and that cost will be the flaws of the game. The biggest one being that the game is so dark still after the patch. At times, this game is darker than a Nigerian swimming in an oil spill. And I fiddle with my TV's brightness is all the way up, and I mess with the Xbox settings. I turned off HDR, and I still don't see any difference with the brightness. And that goes for modern graphics and retro. There's just certain spots in this game that are just so dark. I don't understand why this game is so dark, and why do I have to switch between graphic styles to be able to see. I should be able to play the game 100% in modern graphics. That's why it was remastered. And after the patch, there are still certain switches that are hard to see. There is still places that you might be able to platform to, like grab a ledge, that you might not notice because the game is so dark. And what happens for some players is they don't think that there's anything to do at that spot, and they wander around and they waste time trying to figure out what to do, when in reality what they needed to do was right in front of them. It was just so dark that they couldn't tell. The camera has been greatly improved since the patch, but there's still spots where the camera is horrible, and especially when you're swimming, there's still spots where Lara gets stuck on nothing and the camera just like zooms all behind her and in her legs and stuff while she's not even moving, like she's swimming in place. While the game does have modern controls, and I definitely like modern controls, it still doesn't feel 100% fluid. There's still issues where you will walk to something and she would be diagonal when she should be walking flat in front of it. But don't let some of the flaws of the game deter you from playing it if you want to play it. I actually do think Tomb Raider 1 is a good game. And if you're like me, I actually have a video where I talk about how to beat the game without using a guide, which will give you the fundamentals, and it will tell you things that you need to be looking for to beat the game, so you don't feel like you will get stuck, and you have tools to help you if you do get stuck. So check that out if that interests you. The video is designed to help you beat the game without having to reference a guide. So we talked about what the patch offered, but now I want to talk about my first playthrough on a new game that was before the patch, that bare, that vanilla Tomb Raider 1 Remastered, fresh out the developer's sweatshop, classic Perkspective review. So my first playthrough was complete before the patch even dropped. So I start playing the game, and of course the graphics look good. I'm playing on modern controls. The controls are pretty good. It feels way better than it ever has before. And I'm immersing myself into the game, and I'm really trying to grasp the formula so I can go ahead and play all three of these games, so I can go ahead and make my content. And the first couple of Peru levels went very good. I'm doing my thing. I found the shotgun early. I'm finding the secret pickups. I'm really grasping what the game is about so far. I'm starting to realize that they hide things from you. I'm loving the fact that they have the exclamation point for the action icon if something is interactable. And I'm enjoying myself. I'm having a good time, actually. But by the time I reached the tune of Koala Pig was the first time I got stumped for a significant amount of time, which I mean from like 15 to 30 minutes maybe. And that's actually the level where I started to live stream the game. I randomly decided to start live streaming. However, I already spoke on this before earlier in the video, and I won't elaborate again. You guys already know what's up. And I feel like the tune of Koala Pig is the level that starts increasing the difficulty curve with the puzzles by a lot. I don't think there was fixed puzzles before this level, if I'm not mistaken. There might have been one where you push in a block. One thing I noticed about this game is some of these jumps look so deceiving, like the jump from the bridge in the Lost Valley. It doesn't look like you can make the jump, but you can with that running start. Thus leads us to Greece, where we go to St. Francis Foley, and that brings us to Pierre, which I realized throughout the game, Pierre is kind of a stalker enemy. Now, while the combat is pretty mundane, there is something cool I noticed about Pierre, and that is he will try to bait you into traps. Like there was a point where he made me chase him, and I got crushed by this door trap. Or he tries to lead you into some lions on the Colosseum level. It could have been the Greece levels or before, but that's when I adopted the strategy to start using camera mode to figure out where I should be going, how to platform somewhere, or just to look at the level in a different angle, or to see if there's any key items nearby. It's also an advantage if you just want to leave Lara in place if you don't want to platform somewhere where you might slip and fall and die. And as you can see on this level in the Coliseum, I am observing the room in camera mode to see where am I jumping to, because you can't really see the point of elevation you need to jump to since they blend in with the flat surfaces so well. When I was in the cisterns, I realized when I was swimming, sometimes the game would just like glitch out and it would zoom all in Lara's legs and she'll just be swimming in place. Combined with how the camera is on land, which can be very annoying sometimes. When I was in the cisterns, it was also hard sometimes to see the key locks on the wall since it's so dark sometimes. I really didn't enjoy the cistern level. It definitely had me stumped for a few times, which takes us to the next level, which is the Tomb of Tehokan, which the intro of the level definitely had me disorientated. This level definitely had me lost too for a few sections for various reasons, and one is there was this section where there's this lever on the wall and you can't even see it because it blends in with the wall so well, which made me run around the whole level trying to figure out what to do, yet the switch was there the whole time. Another issue I had with this level was I came into this room and looked around and I didn't see anything, and once I returned back in that room after I looked around for like 30 minutes, was the key was in the room the whole time, but since it wasn't visible, it had me look all over the whole level. Like, bruh, just look at my reaction in my stream once I revisit that room. Ain't no way. Ain't no fucking way.
Ain't no way. Ain't no fucking way.
I missed the key because I couldn't see it. So in all, the Grease levels were very creative in their level design. It was cool with the self-discovery aspect of the game, figuring out how you're going to go across these levels and paying attention to see how these levels are articulated and finding the execution that you need to get through them. Maybe not the Cisterns and Tomb of Tehokan, that level's alright. But for St. Francis Foley, Coliseum, and Palace Menace, those levels definitely had masterclass level design. When your boy finally landed in Egypt, I had a realization about the grid system around the Sphinx. And that was, I only assumed you can jump up by where the arms are, which you can never put yourself up because the ledge was diagonal. However, I walked around the level and came back and realized that the area by the left arm was flat and it let you jump up and pull yourself up to the Sphinx to go behind it and hit the switch. And I realized this is what people meant by the grid system. People used to tell me in my old videos, you don't understand the grid system. And I used to be like, what do you mean I don't understand the grid system? I can clearly tell everything is composed by squares. However, I didn't realize how much of your movement options are actually dictated by these squares, which led to me wandering around the level and actually finding this elevated platform under this bush texture, which takes you to the next area of the game that you need to proceed. So now I'm really starting to grasp that Tomb Raider 1 formula and understand how crucial the grid system is to advance in these levels. However, there are some spots in the game where you use the grid system to advance in the level, and you're executing your platforming, and what you're supposed to do to advance does not seem like that's what you're supposed to do. For example, if you take this Egypt level where you're supposed to jump on this square with this column, you keep bumping your forehead when you do a running jump, and then it has Lara just vibrating through the very fabric of time. This can be interpreted as you're not supposed to do this. But once you actually look at that whole room, you're definitely supposed to jump off that spot and make yourself go all the way up to get out. So I will say the Egypt is another section of levels which I think do have masterclass level design. However, I will say I personally do not like the Sanctuary of Sion level. It's kind of annoying, but it is a good designed level. There's a spot where you can miss the keyhole because it blends in with the wall so well. As well as I did not see the switch underwater because it blended in with the wall so well. And of course, those issues made me wander across the level, wasting time when what I needed to do was there the whole time. So now we're off to Natla's Mines, and Natla's Mines is definitely a contender for the hardest level. And I was very motivated to get through this game. However, pre-patch, I had a huge issue with this level, and that's with the building that you lower from the crane having texture issues. And at this point, I already had the shotgun, and I used the shotgun to kill the guy who stole your magnums. Which was a nice little boss fight, if you will say. Which was avoid the holes so you don't fall in the lava, and glaze them up with the shotgun. Now back to the crane room. When I come back in that room, and I haven't even added the fuses, there are 2 buildings stacked on top of each other.
What the fuck, y'all? God damn! God damn!
So now I need to figure out which one is the actual building. Go in the bottom room, and I look inside, and there's no pistols, so it's not the bottom one, because I know you get the pistols from that room. So now I go add all my fuses, and once I add all the fuses, I get no visual or audio cues that anything's happened. So I'm like, damn, I'm fucked. So I go back in the first room that's on the bottom, and my pistols are actually in there. So I take those, and I leave the room, and I go outside and use camera mode and see that you're supposed to jump off the bottom room into this hole to progress through the level. So I returned back into the room, and now there's only one building, and it's way up top now. So I jump under it just to see if it's the real building or not, or just to see what's going on with this texture in the building. So I go back into the room where you add the fuses, and it makes a noise like the building has lowered. And I go back to the ground floor, and the building never actually ended up on the ground, and I jump under it just to see what happens. Then I return back to the fuse room, and it makes another noise like it lowered. But now it's actually on the ground, and I'm able to jump on top of the building and go where I need to go. This level was tweaking like shit. It was smoking that Atlantean Kush, but we made it past. We actually need to backtrack to the point where you fight the guy who stole your magnums, because it's the point I forgot to illustrate. And that is, when you first come into the room with the guy with the magnums, I had never dropped to that platform close to where he spawns, because he was already shooting me on the ledge. So I thought if I come down there again, he would just shoot me on that platform. And in retrospect, you might have been good, because you have to drop down to the other platform with the health pack, and maybe he wouldn't shoot you, but then he still might shoot you if you go across the intended path down there, which did happen to me on New Game Plus. He did pop me with some shots and kill me when I was shimmying down there with the lava. So I spent a lot of time trying to safely drop all the way down there to the lava. And eventually I got it safely, but I'm just saying this level can be interpreted so many different ways, and the way you interpret it will probably end up giving you the short end of the stick. And taking the intended platforming way down there, on New Game Plus I did that, but I still got shot when I was shimmying from all the way up there, so I feel like it's really just RNG if he's in position to shoot you, because you gotta go down there to get the shotgun anyways. Thus, we end up in Atlantis and the Great Pyramid, and these levels definitely look like they came straight out of Metroid. Atlantis was definitely dark as shit, and Atlantis and the Great Pyramid were definitely action-packed levels. They had good puzzles, and they were challenging too, even with the platforming. Then we have this room where you're supposed to block this rock with the block. However, I didn't realize that because I assumed you were on a timer, so I just dolphin dived and I beat the rock to the door, so you don't have to block the rock, but that is what you're actually supposed to do. It is nice to get around objectives with multiple methods. There is this one trap where you would hit the switch and the lava will flow towards you. However, when I was doing this, the camera was being very weird, and when I would hold the joystick down, she would move up, and then when I would hold it up, she would move up towards the lava. So I switched to tank controls, and that was enough to get the job done without the camera being weird and keeping your controls consistent. Then we ended up dealing with Natla, and she got dealt with. She got her back shots. So, on my first playthrough pre-patch, I definitely enjoyed the game, but it certainly definitely had some flaws, but I actually really enjoyed myself. I was very determined to beat this game without using a guide for anything. Now the real question is, what did I have to look up to beat this game? In St. Francis Foley, in the first room on that short block, I kept trying to do the jump with a running start, and she kept hitting her forehead, and I was jumping off of other points other than the very edge, which made me experiment by moving the blocks, hitting the switches and all this. When none of that was the solution, I literally just had to walk to the edge and jump off. And I ain't the only one, because somebody asked in my live stream after I did that part, how did I do it? So it wasn't just me who had to look that up. And the only other thing I looked up was during the cisterns, there was the last room where I needed to hit the switch to get that last key, and it made it look like you needed to flood that level with a little bit more water. However, there wasn't another switch that you could hit that you haven't already touched. So I was gonna go hit the switch and drain the water down. However, I was so annoyed with the level that I just looked it up because I wasn't sure if I was right. And when I looked up the video, they did drain the water and go back to that room. So I didn't even finish watching the video, and I went back to the room while the water was drained and platformed and got the key. So I really don't consider that I used the guide to beat this game because I was right with the cisterns, and the St. Francis Foley jump don't count. Even more, Tomb Raider 1 Remastered offers New Game Plus. And New Game Plus, you can no longer save whenever you want, and saving will be replaced by the save crystals. Levels will no longer give you health, you heal by saving, and the damage that you take from enemies is absurd. And in my experience from playing New Game Plus, 75% of it is good, but that last 25% is garbage. New Game Plus offers new things, and I realized some things while playing New Game Plus, and all of the positives about New Game Plus will be overshadowed by that last 25% of the end game and the problems that the end game of Tomb Raider 1 Remastered have, and I'll elaborate soon. So when I first started playing New Game Plus, I immediately noticed how punishing the game was, since the damage you take is so absurd. And enemies are beefier than a triple whopper from Burger King this time around. The patch went live when I was halfway done at the Coliseum on New Game Plus. While playing New Game Plus, I really realized that you had to be very methodical in the way that you play the game, and you had to make sure you knew exactly which type of jump you should be doing and where you should position your feet before you fall off and die and have to do it all over again. When I played New Game Plus, I actually picked up way more pickups than I did when I first played the game. And I thought I did good on my first playthrough with looking behind me and using camera mode to find secrets. But when I replayed it, I found way more secrets than I initially did my first playthrough. The save crystals in New Game Plus reminded me of the ink ribbons in Resident Evil. And I adopted a strategy where I wouldn't necessarily save as soon as I saw a save crystal. But I would actually keep playing the level out to see what was going to happen, learn what to expect, and then determine what I wanted to do and if I wanted to save first or not. There's also levels where there's a whole bunch of save crystals all grouped together, which means that you can save whenever you want, which this strategy would be way more useful for. Though, during St. Francis Foley, I kind of shot myself in the foot. I hadn't used all the save crystals, yet I had to do Thor's room and come back out of it to go all the way back down to fight Pierre and the lions, then finally beat the level. While playing New Game Plus, I actually did use some of the shortcuts, like the shortcut where you can fall by the spikes and the Coliseum level. Other strategies that had to be used for New Game Plus is straight up just running away from enemies, since they were so beefy and a lot of enemies appeared on certain sequences.
This is preposterous. I'm out of here.
One thing about New Game Plus that I have noticed is that on some levels, on certain sequences, I did not do them the exact same order and sequence as I did when I first played the game. On the cistern level, I did that at a completely different sequence than when I first played the game, which it is nice to see that the game has variety on the way and the sequence that you can complete the objective. And the same thing for Atlas Mines. The way I went about that level was actually different than the first time I went through the level. And speaking on Atlas Mine, I need to speak on this level on New Game Plus, on my experience playing it. And I can say that this level was crazy because you get all your weapons taken away. However, when you try to fight the guy who takes your magnums, he is so tanky and he takes so much damage. I got my shotgun back with only 6 shots, and them 6 shots hardly did any damage to him, so there was no point of me even fighting this guy. I left him alive. Upon my first encounter with this guy, I actually tried to shoot him with the pistols and saw how little damage it did, so I reloaded my save and I actually saw that if you drop under where he spawns, there's actually a platform you can fall onto, and it has a save point. And then from that platform, I actually found this little nice shortcut to not have to do all that little other platforming just to get to the save point and waste time. However, I proceed throughout the level and I actually die, and I try to recreate that jump I did for that little shortcut, and it was hard to do. So I actually try to platform my way across using the long way. And as I platform myself across through the long way, it doesn't even look like the spot where you drop down from shimmying is a spot that you can land on and be flat. It looks like a spot where you would definitely slide off, which is why I wasn't even sure you would go this way. And as I continued to make my way forward, the guy up there who stole my magnums actually shot the shit out of me as I was shimmying, then killed me. And it made me think, maybe this route I'm taking is not a great route if he's gonna shoot the shit out of me from above. However, I didn't record that clip, but there is a clip of me doing it right without him shooting the shit out of me. So it is RNG for the guy's positioning above you if he's gonna be able to shoot you below if you're playing on New Game Plus, because killing him is out of the question. Unless you have a lot of shotgun ammo or you get your Uzis back and go all the way back just to kill him to get your pistols back. And I seen a thread online talking about how Natla's Mine is actually a bad level, and honestly, I see where these people are coming from exactly. And it's crazy because a lot of this level can be interpreted by people in different ways, and compared to my way on New Game, where I chose to sacrifice life by falling all the way down there because I wasn't sure how you get down there because I never seen the platform under where the guy who stole your magnum spawns. So you can use that platform to get down there without taking fall damage. And I can see why people dislike this level, because I accidentally left my shotgun in that room and I had to go back and do the puzzles to go ahead and get my shotgun back. And all they gave me was 6 shots, and that 6 shots was not enough to kill the guy with my magnums. And furthermore, in the level, I didn't kill the guy who had my Uzis. I dropped so many pistol shots into this Malibu's most wanted looking ass dude, and he still ain't died, but luckily I see the save crystal, and I'm about to die to this guy because he's just running all on my ass, shooting me and bumping into me, causing me to take all this damage. So I find the save crystal that's nearby, and I make a curse save because Malibu's most wanted is literally right behind me. After several attempts with dealing with this bum, I finally get past him, and I get to the end of the level where you have to fight Debo, and he actually kills me. So upon my second attempt, I actually realized when you're doing the puzzle part to get to him, if you run past this door quick enough, he actually glitches and he just stands still and you won't have to fight him. Nor will you have to waste time doing that puzzle going the long way. So Natla's Mine was definitely hell for a level, and they never gave me my magnums back. They only gave me my Uzis back, which is a shame because my magnums had about 8,000 shots. Luckily, in-game gives you enough Uzi ammo for me to complete the game. I'm not sure if they retain the original amount of shots you had before they got taken out. And if they don't, and you don't have a lot of ammo, shit, you might be SOL at the end of the game. Now, the last 25% of New Game Plus, and I need you guys to have your listening ears on for this, is horrible because of the Atlantean enemies that you fight, how tanky they are, and where you fight them. There's times on endgame Tomb Raider 1 where you just get tired of fighting these guys and dying to them and redoing everything over and over again. For example, on the Sanctuary of Sion level, once you return inside the Sphinx and you leave the hallway, you will see that there is 3 Atlantean enemies. 2 of them are regular ones and 1 is the centaur with the cannon. This section was so fucking annoying to figure out how to fucking do. You don't want to fight them in the open space altogether because the 2 hoppers are going to keep body blocking you and pushing you while the centaur is just busting free shots at you. You don't want to fight them in the hallway one-on-one either because they will catch up to you with that hop and they will start to body block you and push you and hit you and you will die. So after numerous tries of me finally doing this, what I learned that worked was I would run in the hallway with one of them aggroed, cut the corner, and once you cut that corner and you take a few more steps, they will stop following you, and they will run back to the open room. And once they run back, you will able to follow them and shoot them up in the back and just rinse and repeat. Then you'll have only the Centaur left, and you'll have that whole open room to run laterally and just keep shooting them up. And the crazy thing is, this took me like 15 tries to do. Once I finally did it, you will not believe what these guys did. I need y'all to light one up for me, man. This shit is crazy. These niggas put Pierre at the end of the sequence after you done fought the 3 Atlantean people, and I'm in here one shot. So I had no choice but to get locked in, and I handled Pierre. My bad, y'all. I met Larson. I don't need the Tomb Raider police on my ass. It's Larson. Anyhow, I'm emoting on your bitch ass. The next area I need to complain about is following the section where you have to hit 2 switches and these pillars rise, and you cross them and you end up in this little tunnel. And no surprise, you are greeted with 3 Atlantean guys to fight. And these guys pounce on you quicker than an inmate getting released out of jail seeing a female. And of course they catch up to you, so that's not an option. In terms of running past them, I've tried running back to the entrance and dangling over the edge and having one of the Atlantean guys aggroed and jumping off the platform. However, none of the enemies are programmed to jump off ledges in this game. So if you really look at the room, I did not think you can actually jump back and forth because the ceiling looks low, and I thought I would bump my head and not be able to jump back and forth between left and right. However, that is the method that you use to kill these guys, finally after several attempts. Even more, I believe this is either Atlantis or the Great Pyramid. It's the section after you do the clone puzzle. This section is annoying because first, naturally, you're gonna kill the Atlanteans that are in the air, and they're tanky, they take a lot of shots to kill, they're annoying. However, once you complete the clone puzzle, you proceed to the next room, which, if you are not cautious enough, you will aggro both the Centaur and the regular Atlantean, and you will have a bad day. So I had to figure out which position can I aggro just one of them, and 1v1 that one, and move on to the other one. And if you fail, which I have several times, you will have to redo the whole clone puzzle all over again. And I've did this so many times to the point where I realized you don't even need to kill the Atlanteans in the clone room puzzle. You can do the whole puzzle without getting hit by them. The only thing is you'll have to breathe the same air as those fuckers. Last and not least, let's talk about Natla's boss fight. You would want to fight Natla somewhere where it's open and not a lot of things that have an incline or sticking up to stop you from moving. However, this method did not give me the keys to success. Eventually, she will fly up and get behind you and shoot you at angles where it's hard to react to. You be running into stuff. And eventually, you just be taking too much damage and you eventually die. So the method I did use to beat Natla was, as soon as she flies out, I would get close to her and position myself close to the wall to get her to get close to the wall, so when she shoots, she's shooting the wall. However, if her shots do land towards you while she's in the air, just flip back and forth between left and right, and you'll be good to get through her first phase. On her second phase, when I shot her out of the air, she actually landed on a platform, and remember, enemies in this game are not programmed to jump down ledges. So she was stuck up there, I just got close and I jumped between left and right, and I shot her up, and that's the end of New Game Plus. I gotta say, for that last 25% of New Game Plus and the combat sections they present you fighting the Atlantean guys in those rooms that you fought them in, really highlights how bad the game's physics are in terms of fighting in New Game Plus. In those spots, I'm back on my bullshit, and I got something to say. How annoying the game's inputs are, and how slow your jumps come out, and how floaty they are, and how long you stay in the air, where you still get shot up and you have no iframes. You should be able to fight all 3 Atlanteans in that open space instead of using the hallway exploit, because the open space is where you would use the game's mechanics. Instead, the solution was something very impractical, baiting the enemy to the point where they won't follow you just so you can get behind them to shoot them, instead of using what the game has baked inside the game to fight. Even in the tunnel room, you can mess up the flow of your flips and bump your head and then get shot the fuck up and have to redo that horrid section. You can't even tell that you're supposed to jump over this fire because it definitely does not look like you can. All I'm saying is the last 25% of New Game Plus is garbage. Let's keep it a buck, y'all. Just imagine how much better this section of New Game Plus would have been if your movements actually came out faster and you had iframes in between your flips. Tomb Raider 1 comes with a lot of content. Furthermore, let's talk about the expansions that they added to the game, which is Unfinished Business. Unfinished Business came out in 1998 after Tomb Raider 3 came out with Tomb Raider Gold, and Unfinished Business, it's not good. It feels unfinished. The more and more you play these levels, the more and more worse it feels. Tomb Raider Unfinished Business levels feel like they were made on a level editor, and they don't feel like they were made with the same level of care and soul that the original levels had. And I honestly bet it's made by a different team than the people who originally made the levels for Tomb Raider 1. The levels in Tomb Raider Unfinished Business, at least the ones that I played, feel very stuffed with enemies. On the third level, the room that made me stop playing Tomb Raider Unfinished Business just grabbed a whole bunch of Atlantean enemies and slammed them all in a room, and the room has no point of elevation you can go to, no point to cheese Louise them. You're in a flat room and you have to avoid lava. Based off their attack pattern, you can't do anything, you can't get some distance from them, you can just hope that you kill them all. It's really bad, and they know it. There's no techniques that you can use to help you beat this level. The best thing you can do is grab your Uzis and circle around somebody and hope you kill everybody, which you're not gonna do. This was hot garbage. While I played Tomb Raider Unfinished Business, I started to feel like some of these levels were convoluted. On the second level, there is this structure which has an opening at the top and an opening at the bottom. If you go into the opening at the bottom, you will fall into a room where you can see, if you look past these two column things, that there is a hole you can fall into. I tried jumping around the room to fall in the hole, which there is no way into the hole from the room, and the room has no way out. So clearly you have to fall into the hole from outside the room. So I reload my save and I go to the top of the structure from outside, and I attempt to make this jump and slide into the hole, and I did this jump about 25 tries and I had no success. I get very close, yet I will never slide into the hole. So I start wandering around the whole level to see if there is an alternate way into this hole, and I do not see anything. So I return to where I tried to do the jumps earlier, and I finally jump, slide a little bit, then jump, and finally get into the hole to get into that room. So I'm happy I did it, but I literally did like 50 jumps to finally get it, and you swim, and then you end up in a hallway and you hit a switch, and that's the end of the level. So honestly, Unfinished Business is not worth your time. Play it if you want. I do not recommend it. I don't think it's good whatsoever. That was an example of a convoluted moment that I gave time to. I think we could have seen way more traps like this in the main game. There are sections to levels where they really do test your knowledge of the grid system, which is cool to see. However, that's about all that I can say that is good with Tomb Raider Unfinished Business. So overall, I definitely enjoyed this game, even with the flaws that it had. Sometimes in games, you just have to look past the flaws to enjoy yourself. And honestly, in Tomb Raider 1 Remastered's case, it's a really good game. It's not perfect and it has its handful of problems. However, overall, I definitely enjoyed myself way more than I ever did when I played the game 2 years ago on Steam. And New Game Plus is very enjoyable until the last quarter of the game. That's where I think it falls apart and becomes very flawed. However, you don't have to play the game on New Game Plus, and I think most people play the game on New Game Plus just to get the achievements and the trophies. With me, when it comes to playing games on hard difficulties, I like to play games that have really good gameplay and mechanics that feel good and that have really good response time with your inputs, and help you build an even deeper understanding of the game's mechanics. That was not the case with Tomb Raider New Game Plus at the end of the game. Some people might say they felt satisfied playing Tomb Raider and beating it on New Game Plus, which you are entitled to feel. However, witnessing that last 25%, I do not feel satisfied on beating it, and I felt like I wasted my time. So after attempting to play Unfinished Business and playing New Game Plus and just playing the game as my first time, I would definitely say I will give this game an 8. The biggest flaws that the game still has after this first patch is that the lighting is still just messed up. There's sections where they added their own lighting, which were not in the original, yet the game is still dark as shit. Mainly on modern graphics, but also on classic, it's still dark as shit too in certain sections. Which can really mess you up, especially with how some of the textures are just hidden from you due to the lighting. I definitely think if you tried to get into the series before and you haven't, it's the perfect time to get into it now. And if you haven't, if you like puzzle games or games that really challenge you to figure out what to do, then it's the game for you. It's like an escape room like classic Resident Evil. And as I'm finishing up this video, they released a new patch, so I will link it in the description and we will see what's up with that. So this video does not account for the second patch that just released. But anyways, y'all, I've been working on this video for too motherfucking long and I'm ready to end it. I'm ready to start my Tomb Raider 2 video. I've been playing that on New Game Plus. Stay tuned for more content. And as always, guys, vibe out.